Alright guys, so things are getting out of hand and by now we all know what happened. Iran has been struck by Israel. I mean, what a day, and now we have retaliation back and forth. We have an eruption in the Middle East in addition to Ukraine and a trade war. Now the situation is really dire because even Israel isn't listening to the United States. Now talk about geopolitical cloud going down the toilet bowl. Now apparently Trump told Israel not to do it, but yet they went ahead with the attack. Now, what's so dangerous are the locations of the targets. Now, these aren't some random military bases, but nuclear sites of the enrichment program. Now, if this isn't world threatening, I have no idea what is. Now, the problem is the strategic location Iran is sitting in. And of course, Iran threatened the US as well. Now, for over a month, Trump and his dream team has been talking about lower inflation, how energy prices are coming down. As a result, the US economy is safe. Well, we can take that line of thinking, that line of thought, and throw it directly into the bin. Israel just rained on its parade, and we are one step closer towards Armageddon and the US economy collapsing. Within hours, the price of oil flew to the moon. It rose by a whopping 13%, shooting way past $78 a barrel. Now, great news for the energy companies, but horrific news for everyone else. Consumers are now getting squeezed, and US industries will see production costs rocket higher. Now, this is a classic case of how failed geopolitics is coming back to destroy everything. Now, at this point, how is Trump going to respond? Will he tackle to Israel or tackle to Iran? And let's not kid ourselves, the US Central Command has a ton of military assets and troops in the region. Nearly 50,000 troops spread across the Middle East. We have bases in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iraq, Oman, and I can go on and on. Israel has said this will continue for as long as it takes, so you kind of see the domino effect starting to build here. Now, the US themselves is freaking out. We have statements from Marco Rubio telling everyone that the US is not involved, but the real worry is demanding that Iran not target US assets. But let's be a little realistic here. If the US doesn't get Israel to stand down by cutting off the money or some other measure, the only option left is unmitigated escalation. Then all bets are off. Now, the problem is the global chaos that will unfold from this. Now, this will stem from a huge disruption to the energy markets. And if you thought that the Red Sea disruptions were over and maximum supply of oil to the world is going to happen, it's time to really reaccess everything again. Now, firstly, Israel is shutting down the Leviathan gas field. They are obviously afraid of Iran's retaliation, but it does highlight a bigger problem in the region. Energy infrastructure is going to be fair game, and the global gas market is going to get squeezed if other regions like Qatar they do the same thing. Now the US has a ton of gas supply while China can get as much as they want from Russia. So the biggest casualty here will be Europe's economy once again. Gas prices there rose by over 6%. Remember, this is under the backdrop of a global tariff war, and this means imports crashing, higher prices across the board, and exports coming down as well. When you strike nuclear sites, there's nothing off limits anymore, is there? And when Trump can't de escalate things, we can expect the Iranians to escalate their own response. Now, Iran sits right at the cusp of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is a vital choke point that facilitates global seaborne trade, 11% of it. The issue is the type of cargo going through it. Oil and gas from the biggest energy producers in the world, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Iran could very well choke volumes out to make a point. Now, 40% of crude oil trade goes through the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of oil products like gasoline and jet fuel also flows through the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea and back and forth. Even though the US has their own energy supply, it doesn't make them immune from higher oil prices. Consumers there, American consumers, will still feel higher prices at the pump, and manufacturers will be paying more for power. America's energy mix is unlike their biggest competitor, China. The Chinese have a ton of built up alternative energy sources, and this includes nuclear power, wind energy, and solar. The Americans just don't have that. US energy consumption is driven by fossil fuels, so what happens in the Middle East is a major driving factor. 38% comes from petroleum, 36% from natural gas, and 9% from coal. More than 80% of energy generated is dependent on global commodity markets. There's simply no escape for the US economy here. If oil continues to climb, there goes Trump's grand plan of reshoring. Now, if we look at statements from Trump, it's clear as day that the escalations will likely continue. 2 months ago, I gave Iran a 60-day ultimatum to make a deal. They should have done it. Today is day 61. Now, I don't know about you, but this sounds very ominous. We have heard nothing at all about Trump demanding a de escalation after the attacks and retaliation. It's as if he's throwing down the gauntlet for yet another ultimatum warning to Iran. Now, I hate to go all doomsday on you, but we must prepare for the worst case scenario here. A conservative estimate is for oil prices to hit $75 a barrel, which is where we are right now, maybe a little higher. And this alone will cause CPI to rebound. But if everything collapses and the strait gets closed, we are talking about $130 a barrel of crude. Then we'll see massive catastrophe across the world, especially US industries. Now, there are just so many flashpoints in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia's energy infrastructure, that's one. There are El Mandeb Straits in Yemen, that's another. And remember the Red Sea disruptions? Well, the Houthis might be back in force. And let's remember the promise of Trump's reshoring plan. All the tariffs are geared up to boost US manufacturing at the expense of all other sectors. And this is if everything goes well. According to the estimates, the US should gain 1.2 million manufacturing jobs while losing 1.6 million in services. So there would be a net loss of 440,000 jobs. But what if energy prices spike? Now, companies looking to reshore will have to redo all their calculus of building a plant in the US. Would they invest in an ecosystem highly dependent on fossil fuels where consumer demand is also weak? Or just build their plants somewhere else in Asia? Now, suddenly China looks more stable and attractive. And as the US economy breaks down, this is also horrible news for US assets. And a big shout out to our sponsor today, Indigo Precious Metals. When it comes to buying gold and silver, I trust Indigo Precious Metals in Singapore. They have made investing in precious metals safe, fast, easy, and simple for both small and large scale buying. I've been stacking gold for over a decade now, and I've learned two things when buying. You want to buy authentic gold bullion, and you want to buy it at the lowest premium possible to stretch your dollars even further. And I'm glad to say I found both of this at Indigo Precious Metals. Indigo Precious Metals is a leading retailer in Singapore. They specialize in physical gold, silver, and platinum. They are my one stop shop when it comes to buying bullion. Their prices are sharp, and they have the best brands on sale, and I can test the gold on the spot. So if you're looking to make your first gold purchase, Indigo Precious Metals is the best place to start. Whether it's 1 ounce or 1 kilo, this is the reputable dealer you are looking for. So take action today. Click on the link below and enjoy a discount on your first purchase with the code SEANFOO. Start your gold stacking journey today. Wherever there's chaos in the world, the default move, the traditional move, is for money to flow into the dollar. But that isn't really the case today. The dollar did rebound by 0.5% at best. However, we didn't see the aggressive amount of flows that would be entering the currency. In a nutshell, investors know how bad things can escalate for the US. Now, not just in markets, but for the US military presence in the Middle East. And if things escalate, Trump will be forced to retaliate. There's no way he can tackle out of that scenario. The Iran news once again exposes the fragility of the dollar. All the currencies at the end of the day are connected to their economy. Higher oil prices derails Trump's tariff plan. And according to ING, the dollar should be trading much higher based on last night's events. It's another testament to the loss in value of the dollar's safe haven status. And this is where we need to shift our mindset a little. The dollar should be seen less as the reserve currency and one that is more dependent on the US economy itself. And since America will trade less with the world, the dollar's usefulness will become more limited. It will be used more for just US goods and US services. And obviously, the Middle East erupting is a net negative for the entire economy. If the US consumer gets squeezed from higher oil prices, while manufacturing crashes, the US will import and they will produce less. So we have to rethink our entire assessment of the dollar and its relation to the global economy. Trump's trade war has changed the rules, and more importantly, Besson's prediction of low inflation is going to implode.
There seems to be a new version of TDS, which I would call tariff derangement syndrome. And many on your side seem disappointed that there is no inflation today. As a matter of fact, we saw the best inflation numbers since 2020. So there has been nothing passed on. There has been no tariff recession. So no inflation, no recession due to tariffs.
Well, the risk of higher inflation is building, and so is the risk of a US recession coming. And this is how financialized the entire economy is. Higher inflation is yet another signal for the Federal Reserve to stop cutting rates. There's no way to slash rates at this point. Oil traders are pricing in much higher crude in the options market. The risk of a massive spike is becoming more and more likely. And this is the largest jump since October 7 and when Iran and Israel traded attacks last October. Consumers and industries are truly tapped out at this point. There's simply no way for them to absorb higher energy prices for a prolonged period of time. There are just too many things stacking up against the US economy, against US markets. The S&P is now looking really wobbly and is on the brink of a big crash. Now, we saw a serious meltdown yesterday in US stocks, and it's not going to stop. If you want a true safe haven, we just need to look at gold. Prices rose by over 1%, hitting over $3,400. And should things escalate, it's going to rise more because there's simply nowhere else investors can go. Now, when war erupts, money and currency they get debased. Now, how do you think war is being financed? Through debt and deficit. The insane amount of money spent over the last 3 years should be testament to that. Now, we are seeing a big shift away from the dollar as the reserve asset to gold, and there are just too many negatives here. From disastrous deficits to horrific US policy that really threatens to blow up everything. Now, gold today has overtaken the euro as the world's second largest reserve asset. It now accounts for 20% of global official reserves, and that is astounding. Sure, the dollar is still in first place with 46% of reserves, but we can expect its share to erode over time. Now, Biden started the ball rolling, and Trump is just going to make things worse. You throw in the trade war with China and the sanctions still imposed on Russia, central bank demand for gold just won't stop. Now, I want to end this circling back to Iran. If we read the statement from the White House, they are echoing Trump's very own Truth Social post. And once again, it's this emphasis on Iran making a nuclear deal with the US, and even after the strike, Trump is still pushing for it. Within the message, it sounds like more escalations are coming. But if we listen to the Iranian statements, they are not going to give up their nuclear program. So what comes next could be horrifying. If nuclear assets within Iran can be targeted, oil terminals and production fields could be next. Then we'll really see oil above $100 easily. Now this entire situation tells us quite a few things. Three things actually. The US is losing control. Now Trump just admitted to the Wall Street Journal that the US was aware of Israel's plans to attack. But the fact that Trump couldn't de-escalate it is the real problem. The Middle East is out of America's direct influence. Now, he even called the attack great for the market because Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Well, I don't think that's how things work, but we have to be prepared for more chaos ahead. Even Bank of America sees a path for gold to hit $4,000 in the next 12 months. And if it does happen, I won't be surprised. The dollar is under siege from all directions. And once traders really figure this one out, the Middle East crisis will weigh heavily on the dollar. And instead of money flowing into the USD, fleeing there, another big reversal might happen and hammer it down even lower. Now, I hope everything works out, but today, hope is not a strategy. But let me know what you think. Will Iran go all out and retaliate? And will this collapse US assets even further? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.